there is supposedly a deal on the table between Israel, the US, and Hamas to end the Gaza genocide. Now, this is being touted as like, it was originally kind of like a way to just blame Hamas for whatever happens here, but Hamas turned it around very well in their response to it. So what happened originally is that Trump published a 21-point plan to end the Gaza war, the Gaza genocide. However, this plan had been changed. Trump showed the original plan to Arab governments. The Arab governments, as disgusting and collaborators as they are, they agreed to this original 21-point plan. And then Trump gave it to Netanyahu, had Netanyahu change it, and then he released it to the public. And the Arab governments endorsed it anyway, even though it had been changed from what they originally approved of. As was reported here, the US news outlet Axios said the deal before Hamas is significantly different than one the US and the Muslim countries had previously agreed on. So let's look at this deal. But first, I want to note this masterstroke from Hamas in that they made a sort of non-committal agreement to the deal in saying that they would agree to release Israeli hostages, provided that we have negotiations over the substance of this deal. And in response to that, which was not an unconditional agreement, Donald Trump immediately tweeted saying, Hamas is ready for a lasting peace, and calling on Israel to immediately stop the bombing of Gaza. So yeah, Hamas responded to it in a good way and turned the narrative around on its head, because the original point here was to change the deal from what was originally presented to Hamas and to the Arab states, and have Hamas rejected on those grounds so they can be like, Hamas rejected the deal, now we get to do genocide no matter what. But Hamas made a wishy-washy statement where they said, we agree to release the hostages, but we don't commit to the rest of the deal. And Trump bought it, and he positively reacted to it and basically said he's a member of Hamas now. So now this deal is terrible. We'll go over the 21-point deal now. But you can't really fault Palestinians for agreeing to it, especially since the original deal was better, because they're in a genocide, and the only thing that's going to stop the genocide, given the fact that literally no one wants to help them, that no one does anything, that Westerners do almost nothing. The Italians tried recently with the strike, but they're Italians, they don't really have a massive effect over this sort of thing. Americans in particular don't want to do anything. Unfortunately, a really shitty agreement to end the genocide and basically give up Gaza to a colonial viceroy, which is what this deal is probably legitimately going to seem really good if you're a Palestinian being genocided, because it's probably better than being fucking massacred and having your children blown to smithereens. That's a sad fucking reality here. So let's read the 21-point or the 20-point plan or whatever it was. BBC says it's 20. I thought it was 21. Let's read. 1. Gaza will be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. So I want to note here that all of the language here is totally non-committal. There's no descriptors here. They don't actually tell you what the fuck any of this means. And that's very telling, because it gives them the space to do whatever the fuck they want and say, oh, this is encompassed under X point of the plan. What I just read, that doesn't mean anything. So what does that actually mean in practice? What are they going to do? I guarantee you it's going to be giving Israel control over the Gaza education system to indoctrinate children into thinking that Jews are a master race and their land is actually Israeli and they need to submit to Israel. That's what it's going to be. To submit to the Israeli terrorist colonizers, to indoctrinate children, literally. First they massacre them, then they indoctrinate them. 2, Gaza will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza, who have suffered more than enough. Doubt it. If both sides agree to this proposal, the war will immediately end. Israeli forces will withdraw to the agreed-upon line to prepare for a hostage release. During this time, all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment, will be suspended, and battle lines will remain frozen until conditions are met for a complete stage withdrawal. Within 27 hours of Israel publicly accepting this agreement, all hostages, alive and deceased, will be returned. Once all hostages are released, Israel will release 250 life-sentence prisoners plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after October 7th, 2023, including all women and children detained in their context. They literally admit there that they have women and children prisoners kidnapped from Gaza. Non-combatants kidnapped from Gaza. They admit there, just casually, yep, Israel kidnapped women and children from Gaza, and they're holding them. Who the fuck knows where and what they're doing to them? They just admit that in this plan, and everyone just brushes over it like it's nothing. For every Israeli hostage whose remains are released, Israel will release the remains of 15 deceased Gazans. So that literally, they kidnapped bodies as well. They stole bodies, they stole cadavers, and they're holding them illegally. What the fuck? Once all hostages are returned, Hamas members who commit to peaceful coexistence and to decommission their weapons will be given amnesty. I seriously doubt that. I seriously doubt they will give a blanket amnesty to anyone who fought against Israel. Give me a fucking break. Members of Hamas who wish to leave Gaza will be provided safe passage to receiving countries. Upon acceptance of this agreement, full aid will immediately be sent to the Gaza Strip. What the fuck does that mean? At a minimum, aid quantities will be consistent with what was included in the 19th January 2025 agreement regarding humanitarian aid, including rehabilitation of infrastructure, rehabilitation of hospitals and bakeries, and entry of necessary equipment to remove rubble and open roads. Entry of distribution and aid in the Gaza Strip will proceed without interference from the two parties through the United Nations and its agencies and the Red Crescent, in addition to other international institutions not associated in any manner with either party. Opening the Rafah crossing in both directions will be subject to the same mechanism implemented under the 19th January 2025 agreement. You notice here, even this agreement does not include the GHF, because this is like a tacit acknowledgement of the fact that GHF is an Israeli fake instrument of genocide. Like, the very fucking fact here that it says the UN and the Red Crescent will handle this is an acknowledgement that the GHF is just an instrument of genocide, because if they were a real aid agency, why wouldn't they be involved? There's so many like admissions here without, like, if you don't know what to look for, you don't realize they're admissions, but they really are. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee. Give me a fucking break. They're just going to form like a government of like specifically handpicked collaborators is what they're going to do, who really won't have any power. They're going to be puppets of the US and Israel. Responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts. And it's not really a Palestinian committee, is it? With oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump. So the dictator of Gaza is going to be Donald Trump, self-appointed dictator of Gaza, Donald Trump, with other members and heads of state. This is even more offensive than Donald Trump, to be announced, including former Prime Minister of the UK, Tony Blair. Donald Trump is appointing himself the Queen of Gaza, and Tony Blair is his viceroy. Now, I want to be clear here before we move on. I don't blame Palestinians. I don't even blame Hamas for accepting this garbage. They're going to negotiate. It's going to be changed to be slightly more favorable to the Palestinians, I'm sure, in some way. But Israel doesn't accept surrenders in general. This is a temporary agreement to stop the genocide for now, with maybe slightly more weight than the previous ceasefire agreements had. So take all this shit with a grain of salt. Take all of this, even if this was implemented, it would be temporary until Israel gets a lust for genocide again. They want to bomb Gaza again. They love genocide and they love murder. What else is there to say? This is going to be something that Israel violates. Like, look at Lebanon. Israel agreed to ceasefire in Lebanon and they bomb Lebanon daily anyway. For Israel, there's no such thing as a ceasefire. There's no such thing as even a surrender they would respect, okay? As long as Palestinians exist, they are a problem for Israel. So this is temporary. I don't blame Palestinians one bit for accepting this or something like it. But it is the most colonial, disgusting thing you could ever imagine. But it's also not going to be permanent. It's not going to be long-term. It's going to be something that Israel will violate. And they're going to try to indoctrinate Palestinians out of resisting. They're going to try to do everything they can to make it so that Palestinians lose the will to fight for their own rights, for their own basic humanity. It's not going to work. But for now, this might end the current genocide for a time. Aside from the fact Israel is still obviously going to be randomly bombing Gaza whenever they feel like, because that's just what they do. And then it says, this dictatorship, this Tony Blair dictatorship, will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority has completed its reform program. And so, this dictatorship of literally the UK and the US, fucking Tony Blair, will decide arbitrarily with no set-in-stone time frame when Palestinians get to have independence, which will be never, obviously. They can just do this as long as they want. There's nothing here. It's so non-specific. There's no specific dates or anything. There's no standards. There's no real set-in-stone aims of what the Palestinians can do to get rid of this colonial regime. This is vague wording in order to justify whatever they want. Okay? A Trump economic development plan to rebuild and energize Gaza will be created by a convening panel of experts. Man, a Trump economic development plan, that is a nightmare. No one wants a Trump economic development plan. The only place we want a Trump economic development plan is in the USA so that it collapses, okay? We don't want a Trump economic development plan. That's the worst thing that can ever happen to you, unless you're not an American and you want the American economy to fall. That's horrible. No, please, no. A special economic zone will be established with preferred tariff and access rates to be negotiated with participating countries. They are literally trying to turn Gaza into a special economic tax-free zone for foreign capital. Unbelievable, right? Even in the terms of a fucking surrender agreement, a forced surrender on the Palestinian people by a genocidal regime. They are trying to make Gaza into a playground for foreign companies. They're trying to throw that in there. Never let a crisis go to waste. No one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. Bull fucking shit. I don't believe that for 1 second. We will encourage people to stay and offer them the opportunity to build a better Gaza. Nope. There's no way Israel agreed to that. Hamas and other factions agreed to not have any role in the governance of Gaza indirectly, or in any form. All military, terror, and offensive infrastructure, including tunnels and weapon production facility, will be destroyed and not be rebuilt. So basically, Palestinians no longer have any right to their own military. That means they de facto have no right to sovereignty. Palestinians have no right to ensure their own security against a fucking genocidal neighbor. You see? There will be a process of demilitarization of Gaza under the supervision of independent monitors. New Gaza will be fully committed to building a prosperous economy to peaceful coexistence with their neighbors. This is all terms on Gaza, you see. Nothing on Israel. The problem here is clear that the Palestinians hate the people who massacred them, who raped them, who expelled them, who genocided them too much. There's no hate in Israel. They don't need to learn how to live with their neighbors. It's only the Palestinians. A guarantee will be provided by regional partners that ensure that Hamas and the factions comply with their obligations and that new Gaza poses no threat to its neighbors or its people. No threat meaning they don't advocate for their rights. They don't fight back against oppression. And there's like an international occupation force they call the ISF, which will occupy Gaza under the leadership of Tony fucking Blair. You know, one of the guys, the principal guys responsible for the occupation of Iraq. This is insane, man. Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. Yeah, I'm sure you'd stop them if they wanted to do that. The IDF will progressively hand over Gaza to this new international military force they're forming to occupy under the leadership of Tony Blair. Straight up saying there, this is not going to be Palestinian run or administered. It's going to be occupied by the Tony Blair private military company. You might as well just hand it over to BlackRock. You know, give it to Graham Plattner. The same effect. An interfaith dialogue process will be established based on the values of tolerance and peaceful coexistence to try and change mindsets and narratives of Palestinians and Israelis by emphasizing the benefits that can be derived from peace. There's no way they're going to do any of that for Israelis. Give me a break. While Gaza redevelopment advances and when the PA reform program is faithfully carried out, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration of the Palestinian people. When fucking Donald Trump and Tony Blair decide you get statehood, that's going to be never. Yeah, this is not worth taking super seriously. At most, what this is like temporary genocide alleviation. There's nothing concrete in this plan that it has like any real chance of happening. Don't trust it for 1 second. Don't think any of this is ever really going to be implemented. It's so vague. There's no time frames. There's nothing concrete. There's no real commitments. It's designed to be as vague as possible to give new dictator of Gaza, Tony Blair, as much discretion to do whatever he wants. But yeah, Israel breaks every ceasefire. Israel does not accept surrender because ultimately Israel's ultimate goal is the complete genocide of the Palestinian people and their erasure from any land that it covets. And ideally they want them gone from the entire world so they can no longer claim the land that was stolen from them anymore. So yeah, don't put undue significance on this. You know, I don't blame any Palestinians, Hamas or not, for wanting an end to being endlessly bombed and having their children blown to smithereens and their loved ones blown to smithereens every single fucking day. I don't begrudge them a second for wanting to accept this so they can stop being bombed, even if just temporarily. I just think that in general, this isn't over. It will never be over until Palestine is free from the river to the sea, hopefully led by the reincarnation of Che Guevara.